any here. I mean, there's...
Oh yeah, look at, oh.
Let's go over to the side yard. Not quite as many as I thought. It's more on the driveway.
Right here. There's...
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. That's what causes the mounds.
Ah yes, well spring is in the air, kind of, I guess you'd say. And of course March is here, but March is one of those months where sometimes it's nice outside and then you get a stretch of what we've had recently, which I'm sure a lot of you have been experiencing as well, which is some not so great weather, some really gloomy, cloudy weather like we have today. But it is time to do an update. It's been a few weeks since the last update on my snow mold damage, what's going on with all that. I've been getting some questions about where I'm at with it, what I might be doing in terms of any intervention, so we're gonna go over that today. So one of the first things you're probably going to notice is that the green up has happened immensely since the last update. We had about 3 nice days of 70s a couple weeks ago, got a lot of sunshine in there, and then we got some rainfall in the last couple days. And as soon as you really typically get that rainfall in the spring, and you start to get extra daylight as the time has changed and all that, that's when you're probably going to notice the green up happening the most. And definitely in the last week or so, and after that rainfall, the green is looking great. Right now on this fescue, I'm going to show you the difference between this green up right now and what's actually going on outside the fence, which is my old bluegrass. This fescue so far has greened up a lot quicker than my bluegrass did in the past, and that my bluegrass is looking back here. So let's take a quick look at that. So there's definitely still some green in this bluegrass back here, but this has always been a slow one to green up. I think it's just the cultivars that I had, which I was never very thrilled with, which I've explained in quite a few videos before. But fescue, from what I've been told about it, can sometimes be slower to green up just depending on the type, but this one right here, it's really green already and looking like the first mow is not too far away. Let's stick with the backyard here for the moment though and talk about some issues that are going on. Of course, you saw in the last video the snow mold. Definitely there are some spots there that have extensive damage that was more than just a rake out. There are some other spots where the raking did a perfect job and no issue with that. Outside of the fence and inside of the fence, I'm seeing a lot of broadleaf weeds. Something I don't really quite understand because I've never had too much issue with that before, even especially back in the bluegrass. So something happened there where I'm just seeing a ton of broadleaf weeds this year. Maybe it was perfect conditions for something that was laying in the soil. I don't exactly know. I didn't really do anything different between this side and what's inside of the fence in terms of any intervention last fall. I did obviously reseed that. This side I did not reseed, and I'm seeing the exact same weeds in both sections. So it looks like a broadleaf weed killer is going to have to be in my plans here because these things are pretty much littered everywhere. Many of the broadleaf weed killers, there's a bunch of them that are available. I have a bunch of options already. I'm just gonna have to pick one of those here pretty soon and see how everything goes with getting rid of these weeds. Beyond that, here you're going to see all of the extensive trails and the things that I showed in the last video. Now that everything is greened up, you can see how many extensive trails are actually there. Now, I haven't found any brand new mounds in terms of moles. You'll be able to tell where they're moving with their tunnels because you'll actually see a mound come up and you'll be able to kind of tell where they are. Now, I have not seen any of those. As I'm walking through here though, I do still step into some different areas where my feet kind of sink in and I can feel there was a tunnel there, but it doesn't seem like it's brand new or that it's active right now. So what I've been doing about that is just continuing to monitor. As I mentioned in my last video, if they never come back and they're not active in my yard right now, fantastic. I know better than to think that they're probably gone forever, but for right now I don't see anything actively going to where I could put traps on it or anything like that. So recovery of most of these trail areas I think is going to be okay. Time will still tell a little more here as I get into mowing and seeing how things are recovering. So for an area area like something like this, you're going to see that there's still a few crowns of the plant left in here. It is actively growing in those spots, but man, I've got, you know, larger than a handprint here for the most part, where you're not going to have a very thick spot. And what that's going to allow to do, if we leave it kind of very thin this year, would just be, you know, it's easier for weeds to come into these spots when you have soil that's exposed. So the best way for me to fight off any more weeds coming in would obviously be to probably use a pre-emergent, or the other thing would be to seed these spots, get some more active growth of new grass going in there, get the soil covered, and that way hopefully I'm not going to have any more weeds. And to me it looks like there's a few of them that have enough area here, like I said, it's much bigger than even my handprint, that are going to have some intervention. I would rather have some grass growing in here than put down pre-emergent, have a very thin spot of grass that maybe doesn't have very many weeds in it. So you got to make that decision in spring. That's kind of what it comes down to. The raking obviously did a good job on most of the spots, but some of these were really heavily damaged, more than I've typically seen in past years as well. It's not going to be too tough of a process here. I'm just going to have to go around to each individual spot that I have and kind of get some seed in there, and I will show you that as well. Another thing to keep in mind here would be is if you are going to use a weed killer, also remember to check the labels on those for if you want to put seed down. You're either going to have to avoid those spots here or wait whatever time frame it says on the label in terms of seeding and when you can use those products. Make sure as well to pay attention to the product that you might be using and labels for that, and seeding if you're going to have to fix some of these spots. Now we move to the Bluegrass Monostands over here on the north side of my house. I got a good question recently from someone on YouTube who said they planted Blue Bank, which was this one right here, and that it's spring now. They did that last fall and it's not looking so good coming out of winter. But remember that last year, coming into the first spring with that bluegrass, this did not look very good over here. And in my experience, bluegrass takes about an entire season to really get going. And now if you'll see this over here, I mean, honestly, I have broken the rules and I've already mowed this. I used my manual reel mower over here just to see what things were going to look like, and I mean, it is dark green and looking really good really early right now. So, you know, compared to last spring, huge difference over here. Don't get too excited about that if you just did a renovation last year with bluegrass. It's not looking fantastic yet. Give it a little bit more time, but for the most part, these look awesome. So the ryegrass front yard is a little slow right now, and that's typically been kind of the case for it in general because it is on the front side here. Only gets some morning sun at this point, and until the days get longer and the sun gets a little higher up in the sky, this front part gets shaded more. So nothing to be alarmed about. It is greening up, but I'm not concerned about it at all. It's been typically like this the last few years, to where it's not quite as far along towards the first mow of the season as this other side yard is. I do see some weeds coming in here too, something I always deal with, clover. There's a couple dandelions look like they're popping up. It's typical stuff here because I'm dealing with an area here around me that has nothing for weed control. So I do my absolute best. I usually don't have to spray too much. I try to pull as many weeds as I can by hand too before they get any sort of maturity on them. So that's going to be my plan. But the clover is a pain in the butt. Got a few spots here of clover as well. You'll see over here on this side that this is greening up nicely on the side yard. It always does. It gets probably the most light per day because you've got the sunlight coming here in the morning, afternoon still coming over onto this section as well. But for the most part, these things that are happening here are very consistent with the things that happen most of the time after winters. So for those of you who are kind of new to the lawn thing, just want to kind of give you a sense of what you might run into, things that are common for a lot of people here in our specific region of the Midwest, but also cool season stuff in general. And finally, on the low-cut turf, with the way that it rained the other night, I posted a picture on my Instagram that the worms are back, and they definitely are. So a lot of people ask me on there, well, what would be the reason why that's a problem? And especially on low-cut turf, but you're going to notice that if you really dig down into taller yards as far as the grass height goes as well, you're going to probably find some earthworm activity. I'm to the point where I have such an extreme amount of earthworms that, especially on low-cut turf like this, it just creates a huge mess. So here's some of those castings I'll show you right here. And those obviously sit above the ground. You come over them with your reel mower, you hit them, or you smash them down with the front roller, and then you'll find spots in the yard. Of course, earthworms are good in the soil in some sense, but sometimes you get an overabundance of them or an excess of them. That's kind of what I've been running into. And in terms of what you can do about it, there's not really a whole lot of options out there for homeowners. There's some different things that golf courses have been trying with tea seed. It's something that I haven't done yet, or anything really that I've done about them, but once I get actively mowing again, it will kind of move those castings, either smash them or the reel will hit them and kind of break things up. Neither one of those are a great option, obviously, but you won't notice them quite as much either when you're actively mowing. But right now, since I'm not doing that, if you walk through the yard and really take a close look, you're gonna see quite a few of them all over the place. So what I'm gonna be doing here is just using this rake. It is a thatch rake. So if you don't have something like this, you can just use something, like a regular type of rake to get all of this raked out of here. But this tool is something that I like specifically for this. It does a great job of kind of cleaning out this stuff without doing any major damage, but you do have to be careful, especially if the ground is wet like it is today for me. So you'll see that, just picked out all of that stuff there. Got this stuff right here, all gone. Your spot looks good. This is just a really light rake through here, nothing crazy, but it will remove all of this thatchy material that's in there, kind of expose what's left over of good grass, and then you'll have enough of the soil showing that you can actually put down some seed in there. And that's exactly what you want. So you just want to be able to see down to the soil, you don't have a bunch of dead material still there that's going to hinder it, because put the seed down on here with just a bunch of dead stuff there, then obviously you're just going to end up with seed sitting on dead stuff. The tines here, they're actually set fairly aggressive. So when you have the angle here, it's going to bite in more. So if we loosen this, change the angle, be a little less. Now you're going down against the ground like this instead of digging in with that hard angle there. So you can just come in like this. You can see now I have plenty of soil showing, plenty of area to get the seed, sit down into the soil, and then I will put the seed down and I will tamp that down into this soil just a little bit as well. That's really how you do it. Like I said, you can use a regular rake. I just like this because I feel like it does a better job of keeping what I want intact and kind of taking everything else. All right, so now I got my grass seed, and yes, I have the correct grass seed. Don't even start. I know what you were thinking. Tall Fescue New Millennia. Okay, same thing that I have. Now, like I said, essentially, I'm just gonna seed these areas by hand. Just need to put some down. Not anything buried in here, but we do want some seed sitting on this soil, and I'll show you a close up here in a second. You could take your spreader in through here, but there's a lot of areas that are already fine, so I don't really need to add much seed into those. I want to specifically target these spots. And then all I'm going to do is just lightly step on these. And like I said, that's going to push this in to the soil just a little. And of course, I could also add a little covering over top of it if I wanted to, but I'm supposed to get some rain tonight. I feel like if we get a little shot of rain on there tonight and you got these actually pressed into the soil, then they should stay there, as long as it's not obviously a crazy storm, which you just never know. So that's the start here of the spring season for me. And if you're dealing with some similar things, I hope this gave you some info there on what you might be looking at this season, or if you have some perfect conditions going on and you're almost ready to mow, then I'm excited for you as well. Then I'm getting excited here for the first mow coming up probably very soon. I'm thinking maybe in a week or so. And so stay tuned for that. But thanks so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.